Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel and or blog, depending on where you're watching this. This is part of a blog hop. I will get into that in more detail later on in the video. This is using some of the new products from the Simon Says Stamp Rest and Refresh release. I keep wanting to call it Rest and Relax. Anyway. I'm using the round and round background stamp here, and I have it just face up on my work surface, and I'm using Distress watercolor paper. I already used my anti-static powder tool on the watercolor paper, and I am stamping it onto the smooth side of the watercolor paper. And I had stamped it with Simon's clear embossing ink, and then I'm going to coat this with some detail white embossing powder. I was completely inspired by the strawberry shortcake confetti mix that is in this release. My initial thoughts with this background, I was going to do more kind of rainbow colors, but then I was like, oh, Sherry Carroll already did that. It's actually one of the main images for this release is her finished cards, because she does a lot of the cards for the promo and stuff. And I'm always like, I want to copy that. But then I was like, no, I can't do the exact same thing. That's just silly, especially not for the blog hop. So I was like, what color should I use? And there's so many color combo options. And then I was looking at the confetti mix and I was like, oh, these colors are pretty. And then I was like, ooh, I could do these in distress colors. So that's what I did. So I have, you can see the confetti, and I'll be using those more at the end as well. But I have 4 different distress inks here, my little mini ink pads. I have Tumbled Glass, Shabby Shutters, Spun Sugar, and Picked Raspberry. Now, all except for the Shabby Shutters work wonderfully together. Blue and pink, you can't go wrong, and they'll mix and make purple. When you add green to the mix, blue and green work, they play nicely together. But when you want to mix green with pink, it gets a little iffy, because technically green and pink make mud, is basically what it is. Now, I know this, so I am trying to be somewhat careful with how I am using these colors. I'm working on my little Waffle Flower water media mat. I've smushed the inks in here. And colors like Tumbled Glass and Spun Sugar are obviously, they're very pale, very light colors. Picked Raspberry, much more intense, but I'm using a little more water with that because I don't want it to overtake all these other colors. But I'm trying to keep the interactions here, the layers with the green over any of the pinks, to a minimum. There wasn't a whole rhyme or reason to why I applied the colors where I did or anything. I was just trying to use less of the green. I wanted a bit of it just because the confetti had it, and it just really worked well with these colors. But I didn't want to add too much to it because, yeah, you start putting green and pink together, and they just start making a muddy color. So I did a little bit of the green, but I kept it mostly the Spun Sugar and the Tumbled Glass and that Picked Raspberry, and just stuck with those. And I did a couple layers here and there, or more, even up to 3 layers, I think, of the colors here and there, just to kind of intensify them. But right near the end, I started noticing with the green going over one of the pink shades right here. This is where it just starting, I was intensifying that pink, and it was starting to go muddy, and I was like, okay, done. I'm done. Back off. Don't add any more. So this was fine. And in the end, you're not going to I'm going to put some vellum over it anyway, but this is where you got to be aware of color theory and how things can just go wrong. But it worked. I was happy with it, and the colors went so well. So I cleaned off my mat just using a baby wipe. And then I have a piece of vellum here, and I'm just going to run this through my little 3-inch, it's 3.5 inches, something like that, little Xyron machine, because it was just big enough to fit in this machine and be able to put the adhesive on the back of the vellum. And then I'm going to die cut it with one of Simon's nested hearts wafer dies. And again, everything, it just fit. It's so nice when things just work, within a hair. So I die cut that. So now this whole piece of vellum is completely covered with adhesive, so you won't see the adhesive. And it's very subtle. If you want it to stand out more, I would put adhesive just behind when I add the white cardstock heart. But I just wanted that little extra kind of framing around what I'm going to use for the sentiment. So I adhered it down, and then I have a smaller heart from the same die set that I die cut from white cardstock. And then the sentiment I had die cut from some Silky Sky Tonic Mirror cardstock. And if I had been thinking ahead, I would have ran that the mirror cardstock through my Xyron as well. But I had die cut it before I even realized what I was doing. I was just kind of playing around. And I was like, ooh, this blue is perfect with this card, etc. So I'm just going to, I'll adhere in a minute. But I kind of lined it up on this heart here and decided to add another little sentiment. And this sentiment's from the Say It All Friend stamp set that I have a feeling is going to be very much a favorite of mine. So I kind of lined it up just using my stamp platform, and I'm going to ink this up with Picked Raspberry Archival ink. I nearly stamped it into Distress ink, but Distress inks don't stamp very nicely. The oxides do okay, but the Distress inks themselves aren't meant for stamping. But Ranger has started releasing, they have 3 sets of the Archival inks, and I love, they stamp amazing. I need all the colors in Archival because that just finishes off my cards. I like to stamp them in the similar colors. So anyway, stamp that little sentiment, and then this is where I'm just going to adhere this die cut sentiment with just some multi-medium matte adhesive because it's like a little, you know, narrow sentiment, and using my reverse tweezers so I don't get adhesive absolutely everywhere with my fingers getting in the way. So I adhered that into place, and then I'm going to pop that onto my card just using some thin 3D foam squares. So just popped a few of those, and I'm just going to center that in the vellum heart that I'd already adhered. And then for my card base, while I have my stamp platform out, I'm just using another sentiment from the Say It All Friend stamp set. And I'm going to ink that up with the same Picked Raspberry Archival ink. And that's going to, I'm keeping the inside simple, just simple. I just want the sentiment to kind of, you know, take center stage. So I've got that stamped, and then I'm going to adhere my watercolor piece. I never cut it down anything, so it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, so it's going to completely cover my card base. And I'm going to adhere this to the card with some kraft tacky glue. It's warped a little bit from the watercoloring, but nothing too bad. So adhere that to my card base with kraft tacky glue. And then to finish off this card, this is where I'm going to add some of these strawberry shortcake, you know, confetti and sequins and whatnot, because it just really brings out the colors that I used. It's just, oh, these are pretty. I love them. So sprinkle those, and then liberally kind of sprinkle these throughout this card here to cover up. There's a couple spots where I got, you know, random colors where they didn't belong. Kind of almost like splatter, but not intentional splatter like I like. So that's another reason why I like adding, you know, confetti and sequins and stuff, because they can cover up little things that, you know, you don't want anyone else to see. So adhere those into place with the kraft tacky glue, and just using my little jewel picker there to put them into place. And that's going to finish off this card. So like I mentioned at the beginning of the video, this is part of a blog hop. I will have links to my blog post in the description box below the video. There's giveaways, there's tons of inspiration, there is a coupon code, all that stuff. So I will have that in my blog post linked directly below. You can check that out if you're interested. Thank you all so much for watching, for subscribing, for thumbs upping and commenting on my videos. I really appreciate it. And I will see you all very soon in the next one. Bye!